Well, good evening, Albany. Albany City Council meeting, Wednesday, May 26th, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Good to see everyone today. Could you please call the meeting to order and do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the
Pledge
flag
allegiance to the flag of the
United
United States of America and to the
and to
republic
the
for
republic
which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was good.
Excellent.
That was good.
Next thing is a roll call, please. Who's with us tonight? Is that Allison tonight or Mary?
Hello, Mary is here. I'm going to do the roll call, please. Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hi.
Counselor Olson,
Here.
Counselor Novak,
Here.
Counselor Bartholomew,
Here.
Counselor Kopczynski,
Here.
Counselor Johnson, here. Counselor Smith,
Here.
Mayor Alex Johnson II.
Here.
Thank you.
So the first thing on the agenda tonight is a proclamation. Let me get to it. It's a long agenda. Oh, there it is right there. I forgot about it. We're doing this. Yep. Thank you, Holly. LGBTQ Pride Month, June 2021. Whereas the month of June is globally recognized as LGBTQ Pride Month to commemorate the Stonewall Uprising that occurred in Manhattan in 1969. And whereas LGBTQ Pride Month was established in a worldwide effort to promote a positive stance against violence and discrimination toward lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer persons. And whereas the LGBTQ community contributes to academic, artistic, civic, and economic success of Albany. And whereas the City of Albany embraces and welcomes all people of diverse backgrounds as a critical aspect of fostering a vibrant community. And whereas the City of Albany recognizes the importance of supporting Albany's LGBTQ community, it is dedicated to ensuring that all Albany residents are empowered to live their lives openly and achieve their greatest potential. Now, therefore, I, Alexander D. Johnson II, Mayor of the City of Albany, Oregon, do hereby proclaim June 2021 as the LGBTQ Pride Month in Albany. And I encourage all residents to accept, celebrate, and recognize the efforts and ongoing contributions of the LGBTQ communities within Albany and to work together to end discrimination against these members of our community. In witness whereof, I hereby hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Albany to be affixed this 26th day of May, 2021. Alexander D. Johnson, Mayor. Oh yeah, nice signature. Next on the agenda, let me go back up to the agenda. The computer's running slow today. Okay, next thing on the agenda is a public hearing, a supplemental budget BN 2019-21, Gina Yeager, pages 4 to 12. Persons wanting to ask questions and comment on the proposed supplemental budget or provide written materials electronic to the public record must email before noon on the day of the hearing. Written testimony may be addressed in the Finance Director's Office, P.O. Box 490, Albany, Oregon, 97321. It must be received before noon on the day of the meeting. So I'm going to open the public meeting. This is right here. This is for the code. I got 3 of them, so give me a sec. The computer's running slow today. It's not switching. There it is. So next on tonight's supplemental meeting, supplemental budget BN 2019-2021. I declare this public hearing open at the time is 6:04 p.m. And there's no one signed up to speak or offer public comment. So I close the meeting at this time at 6:05 p.m. to May 26, 2021. Is that the right procedure, Mary?
That is correct. We did not receive any comment by email or by written mail.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next agenda item is comprehensive plan map and zoning map amendment, CP-01-21/ZC-01-21 in Travis North. And
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mayor Johnson. There is a resolution for the supplemental agenda. And Gina may or may not want to speak to the resolution, but the resolution is up for adoption if the council would like to do so.
Let me find it again, because I didn't see that on that agenda. So give me a sec.
Page 13.
Page 13. Page 13, a sec. I cannot wait to get back in person. Okay, there we go. On page 13 of the resolution, council.
Can we ask some questions about the budget
Yes.
resolution?
Councilor Olson, do you have questions?
Yes, I do. Yeah, well, for instance, on page 17, where they're talking about the Public Works Central Services, and there's a list of the current budget, and then there's supplemental budget additions, I believe it is. And where does the money come from for those supplemental additions? And
So
that,
oh, sorry.
page 17 at the bottom of the page.
Okay, so in this case, we used to have all of our equipment replacement in the 217 fund, which is a capital replacement fund. What we did this year is we broke those numbers out to individual departments and individual programs in order for departments to be able to track the funding that they have and to be able to better forecast the equipment needs they're going to have in the future and to save towards those needs. So those numbers, and you're going to see those in a lot of the different funds. All of those amounts for those IT equipment replacement and equipment replacement programs are coming from the 217 fund. We're just moving the monies over for better tracking purposes.
But those numbers in the middle center column on the Public Works Central Services, those are in addition to the monies on the left-hand column.
They are. We used to account
And
for those.
can you tell me where those came from? They must have come from another part of the budget.
They did. They came from Fund 217, which is the capital equipment or the capital replacement fund. This is where we used to track all of those IT and equipment replacement programs that were going on. So if you look at the 217 fund, which is the capital replacement.
That's at the top of the page on page 17.
It's on the top of the page on page 15.
Page
You'll
50?
see page 15.
15.
You'll see in the supplemental budget adjustment column that there are, we're moving $5 million out and then 1.3 million out. And those are going to all those other programs.
Oh, okay.
So it's just moving the funds from one fund to another so the departments can better track them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, okay. I got it. Let's see if I can pick out, well, let's see, the biggest numbers, 424,100. And should I see that in this column on in the middle there?
Which page are you on?
Page 17, the bottom of the page. Public Works Central Services. And those monies apparently come from someplace. And you say they come from capital replacement on page 15.
Yes,
So I should find that 434,000 there in this.
you are not going to find that on page 15
Oh, okay.
because this number, it's not a direct from this fund to this program. If you look at, that would be included in the 500 and the 5.3 million. That's under capital replacement. If you look at the very first program that says equipment replacement, you'll see that negative 5.3 million.
So that applies to a whole bunch of
Okay.
smaller numbers all through here. Is that correct?
It does, yes. But if you add up all the numbers for IT, for equipment replacement and IT equipment replacement, those numbers will zero out.
To the 5.32
Okay.
million. Okay.
Right, for the equipment replacement, the IT equipment replacement will tie out to that 1.3 million.
Okay, I think I'm understanding what's happening now.
It makes it's it's clear.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilors, any other questions? Thank you, Councilor Olson.
I have a question, but I think I may need some clarification before I can ask the question. I was looking at a few days ago the budget, and I had questions about increases in funding for fire emergency services. And at this moment, I'm not entirely clear if that has to do with the supplemental budget that we're focusing on this evening. And if I'm understanding correctly, again, forgive my first time dealing with stuff like this. The supplemental budget that we're discussing this evening is in regard to not the next biennium, but does the next biennium, did I understand correctly that the next biennium goes into effect on July 1st of 2021?
That's true. If council adopts it, then it will go into effect on July 1st, 2021.
Okay, then I must have been looking at the information that is pertinent to that. So I do have a few questions about an increase for the fire and safety. And forgive me, I don't have the page marked, but it was something where it said this code enforcement program did not work out as intended. And I'm wondering if someone could address that. In what way? Because we have to increase an appropriation for $2 million to fire emergency services due to, and I'm quoting here, higher than anticipated costs in retirement payouts and other payouts, and also things that the Oregon Health Authority required during the pandemic. And then I had a note from page 5 of $690,000 to the general fund to support fire emergency services, which at the same time, it says they had a larger than anticipated revenue, and then $116,000 in personnel services, but they had an additional $93,000 in police grant funding, more funding received than anticipated. So I'm having a hard time, if someone could help me reconcile why it is that we're increasing when they have higher than anticipated revenue, and also how it is that they didn't budget for these costs. And I'm also, forgive me, I know this is convoluted, but with regard to the requirements that the Oregon Health Authority did, where they had people quarantining themselves such that the firefighters had to bring in people who had to then do overtime, which cost a bundle of money. I'm just wondering if there's any way, if we have any recourse with Oregon Health Authority to recoup some of those funds.
Okay, so
that was a lot.
Yeah, I'll try to address them as I remember them. If I
Thank you.
Please jump in if you need to. So the code enforcement was the program that we use for derelict properties. It used to be just part of the general fund administration program, and we thought, hey, that's a great idea. Let's go ahead and move that into its own separate program under police for better tracking.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't work out the way we were anticipating it, because honestly, it could possibly be negative for some time. We work on a reimbursement basis with some of the expenses that we have for that.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is we decided to not use that code enforcement program. So we're moving those appropriations back into the administration program. In the next budget cycle, those will be part of central services in their own program so that we can track those funds. As monies come in, they can sit there and just be used for those types of derelict property. I'm not sure what the word for it would be, but helping clean those up, those cleanups. The $690,000 that you are looking at is coming from the grants program. So recently, the city has entered into an agreement called the Ground Emergency Medical Transport, I believe, and we received funds. And if Chief Wooten's here, he can probably jump in and help me if I'm wrong. But we received funds that will give us monies. Medicare will only pay a certain amount. These funds are to supplement those Medicare monies. So the way that fire had been directing those was they were going into the grant fund and then they were going into equipment replacement. Because of the expenditures in fire coming in higher than they had anticipated, they are redirecting those funds from equipment replacement to the general fund. So those are monies that they received. Normally, they would have those go to equipment replacement. They're bringing them into the general fund. There was, the other one you were asking about was, I'm sorry, I don't remember what the question was.
I think it had to do with the fact that they said that they received more funding than anticipated. 116,000 for personnel services and 93,000 in police grant funding. So these were questions. This is why I was wondering how it was that when they had more funding than they anticipated, why did we have a 12.86% increase in appropriations for public safety? I'm just trying to understand.
So for the public safety levy, is that what you're asking about?
I'm asking about probably more than a few things, and again, I apologize that it's so
No, that's
not
okay.
clear. Yeah, but that I have that in the notes that I was able to jot down before we started. So, yeah.
So let me go back to that. So yes, the public safety levy, we are increasing appropriations to transfers out. So the way that we budget for that is we have to budget out all of our revenues go into the public safety levy fund that come from the local option levy that the Linn County collects. So the revenues came in higher than we'd anticipated. Over the last couple of years, they've underspent that levy amount. So we haven't, and we have to budget for it. Even if revenues come in higher, we still have to budget the expenditures. So that's really what the public safety levy is doing, is it's taking increases in beginning fund balance. We had a higher than anticipated amount there. It's taking in excess revenues that we've received from the county, and we are using those funds to help offset the potential deficit in the fire emergency services. One thing I want to note, though, is that we may not come in as high as what we're anticipating. We could have different accruals that happened at the end of the fiscal year, and those numbers could help offset, could go in either direction for the fire emergencies program. This is only to make sure we have appropriate appropriations. If we don't, then we can get in trouble with the state for not budgeting appropriately, for overspending. And then we would also have an audit finding. So we're doing this partly as a proactive move to make sure that we have appropriations in place should we need them. We don't necessarily know that we're going to need all these. We would only move what we actually needed.
I appreciate that. Again, the fire department incurred over $1,600,000 in sick leave coverage costs, and it says in the paper that I read that they didn't budget enough for some of these things. So I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble. I'm just trying to figure out, if you're not budgeting correctly and then we have to ask for more money, to me, that's a kind of a budget problem. I'm looking at this from a private sector perspective and just trying to get it straight.
So Chief Wooten did address that
Mhm.
he thought they had under budgeted for overtime costs in the last biennium. If you look at the next biennium, he has doubled those numbers. So it should be a more realistic number for their overtime costs. We did receive some funding from CARES that helped offset some of the overtime expenses that were related to COVID, but that was only up through, I believe, December of 2020. So some of that was taken care of. We moved those expenditures out into the grant fund where we were tracking everything. But, again, I think, if Chief Wooten wants to jump in, he's more than welcome to. But, I do think in his memo, he was addressing some of those issues.
I'm just wondering, as I said before, is there any way, or did anyone reach out? Is there any way to have Oregon Health Authority reimburse for, it was their regulations that cost this incredible overage, having to quarantine people and then be short-staffed and bring in people for massive overtime. It seems to me like the Oregon Health Authority should be coming to reimburse somehow, rather than, because this is funds that ultimately I believe are on the backs of the public. And that's where I take issue. That's where I'd like to see if there's any way we can do this so that it doesn't land on the backs of the public.
Well, I think during the primary times when, the COVID event first started, like I said, up through December, we did receive funds from CARES to pay for that overtime that was related to COVID. So it would only be for, since January on, that we would be requesting funds for that type of coverage. At this point, I don't know how much of that would be, would be attributable to COVID. So,
are they still being, are firefighters still being forced to quarantine themselves for 14 days when someone calls out? Or, are you still having, because $1,600,000 in sick leave overage, that's sick leave coverage costs, and, the backfilling the emergency service employees based on those requirements from OSHA. Is that still going on now? Are they still enforcing these same things like they are on the restaurant industry?
Yes, they are. If I may just chime in, Mayor, Council. Yeah, the same regulations that everybody else has to follow, we also do. I will say, though, over the last couple of months, the frequency of that has decreased, even though we have had some people quarantined. And that's because about 80% of our department has been vaccinated. And if you're vaccinated, then you don't have to follow those quarantine rules, so long as you don't have any signs or symptoms. But we did have a time in January where we did have some issues, January and February, where we did incur some costs.
I'm guessing you still, pardon me for interrupting. I'm guessing that will continue, because I have read statistics about people having been vaccinated and getting COVID again. So I think, again, as long as these protocols are in place that you're being forced to follow, we can count on the fact that this budget impact is not going to stop. And I would like to see if there's any way that we can have the Oregon Health Authority reimburse for these costs, or if there's a way to get more money from CARES or something, because again, my main concern is that these overages and costs that are not the fault of our firefighters, not the fault of our police department, that they not land on the backs of the public sector, or, if I'm stating that well.
Private sector. I think
Private sector. Private. Thank you, sir. I knew something wasn't right.
So can I piggyback off of your time, Councilor Novak?
Absolutely.
So I was going to ask the chief, for all the fire services that you supported last year during the fire season, have you been compensated? Has the department been reimbursed those dollars from those departments that we supported?
Yes, we have. We've received payment from those departments, with exception of one of the California fires. We've got an email, I would say last week, saying that California is processing the payment, but then it has to go through the state the state of Oregon before it ends up with us. But that is a source of additional revenue that we do bring in.
So would that help you with the budget? Is it a sizable amount? You know, I know you can't disclose that here because you don't know what it actually is going to be, but would that help offset some of these costs?
I'd defer a little bit to Director Yeager, but the California payment is $144,000.
That's it? Wow. Okay.
Well, that's only for one of the fires.
Okay.
So we have an accrual period here at the city. If we receive the funds within 60 days after the close of our fiscal year, then we can accrue those monies back. So yes, those would go towards the cost in this fiscal year.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. And forgive me for this. One more
no,
note that I had, thank you. One more note I had made was that I noted that 6 tenured employees had retired from the department and their sick leave and vacation payouts were not budgeted for in the amount of $267,000, which would land on the backs of the people. I'm wondering, how do we move forward when that's a lot when you add all these different things up. Again, not trying to blame anybody for anyone, but trying to find a solution, because I'm a little scared to move forward when the numbers are this huge. And I know from the meeting that we had with the folks from the union that, you know, it costs a lot. And so I just want to know, how do we avoid these sorts of things moving forward, and what can we do about the shortfalls in the budget besides say, well, pay for it, you know, get it from somewhere, get it from, you know.
In this next budget that will be in front of you on the 9th, we've accounted for probably 2 people retiring in the next biennium. The issue lies, though, and we don't know if people are going to retire. And so, you know, if we were to budget, I don't know that we could budget for all the people who are eligible. If they all retired, it'd be a sizable sum that we wouldn't be able to use those funds for a better purpose. So we try to make our best guess of who's going to retire. But this last biennium, we had 6 people retire. And we were not prepared for 6 people to retire.
Were you prepared for 2 people?
I
Or 3?
don't know, because I've only been chief for a year and a half. So
yeah,
you know,
that's right.
out of all due respect to my predecessor, I don't know that. I do know we didn't have enough for 6 people.
Thank you, sir.
And Councilor Olson has something. Thank you.
On page 14, under the economic development list, if you look, you will see the top 3 items listed in the current budget, and then you subtract some money from each of those 3, and then you list them below as, again, the same 3 items: economic development activities, Lochner Road improvements, and economic development opportunity. So then you have those 3 items listed twice with different amounts of money. And can you tell me why we're doing that?
Well, actually, if you look at the numbers, you'll see in the first one that we're decreasing the economic development activities.
That's right, you're subtracting
by the
them
1
from
million, right? Yeah. And then if you go down and you look at the second economic development activities, we are offsetting it by exactly the same amount, just in a positive direction.
Right.
So I know this one is really confusing, because it looks like we're moving out, we're moving in.
Yeah.
So the reason this one is one of those purely housekeeping type items, because we moved economic development from the city manager's office to community development, it reports to a different department. So when we budget these by program, we're budgeting by, when we first budgeted for these programs. We budgeted for a program that was set in the city manager's office. So because we're moving those to community development, we are moving them out of the city manager's office and we're going to move them into community development. So they are the same programs, except they have different program numbers because they report to different departments. Purely a housekeeping. This one I know is confusing. It's just to make it easier for us to do our reporting for financial reporting at the end of the year. And then also going forward with new budgets. Otherwise, we have to run two separate reports, one out of city manager's office, one out of community development, and move those together. This will make it easier to just run one report.
So you're going to do economic development activities out of two different offices?
That's why we're changing it. We're moving it from city manager's office to community development.
And this is listed under economic development.
Right. Yeah, the fund is economic development.
So, well, I'm still confused, but maybe it'll sink in.
Well, like I said, it's purely a housekeeping.
I see it adds up to the same number, but it looks like you're going to do Lochner Road improvements twice. So one time for $1,144,000, and another time for $2,500,000 and some thousand.
No, if you look at the numbers, you'll see that
that's a lot of improvement on Lochner Road. That's
well, if you look at Lochner Road improvements, that first Lochner Road improvements shows a negative 2.5. So we're moving that out of one program. If you look at the second time Lochner Road improvements show up, it's a positive number. So they zero each other out. We're just moving it from one department to a different department.
And then below you see it again.
And then, well, so you have
in
economic development. You have economic development activities that you have a negative 1 million, Lochner Road improvements, which is a negative 2.5, and economic development opportunity, which is a negative 1.9. So we're moving all of those out of the city manager's department, but we're moving them into community development. So if you look at the first economic development activities, it is exactly the same amount, just in the different direction. The first one is negative, the second one is positive.
So I think
all offset each other.
This would have been, I think this whole exercise would have been a lot easier if there were line item numbers. You could see the move based on the line item numbers. That would have been very helpful, I think, for all of us.
We don't normally do appropriations by line item numbers. The budget document we do, but not our appropriations.
All right, thank you.
Well, the two numbers in the right-hand column.
I see you, Councilor Johnson.
Add up to the same 3 million and some that's in the left-hand column. I see that. But why, I still don't see why you need the two numbers unless you're putting those into two different places in the budget. And I guess that's what it is. Okay, let's not hold up the meeting.
So Councilor Johnson had a comment first, and then I'll go Peter.
On that same item, if we're moving it to the whatever development, community development, why is not the whole amount, the 1.8, 3.6, and 3.8, why aren't they going to the other one? I mean, why? You said we're moving it out of there, but only we're part of it. So why is some of it left?
Because we're in a biennial budget, we've already spent part of that funding. So the amount that we've spent was the $846,000. So we are moving whatever was left at the end of the last fiscal year.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. You know, I agree with Dick. It's really confusing, and I agree with Mayor that I mean, I know you said you don't do the line items on this, but there's got to be a line item in the regular budget for economic development. So I don't understand why there wouldn't be, because then you could say, okay, this is 1120 and we're going to move it to 1240 or something like that.
I totally understand. We haven't used budget numbers for our appropriations, for the resolutions that appropriate the funds. We will, in the next budget cycle, have the numbers as part of the budget document. We've heard you guys loud and clear.
I was gonna say, oh, okay, we'll leave it alone. All right, we're good.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Gina.
thank you. Are you done, Councilor Johnson? You good? You got what you need? Okay, City Manager Peter, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. And Gina, I think it might help Councilor Olson if you think of it as the first 3 line items are in the city manager's office, and then the second 3 line items are in the community development department, right? So
Correct.
you're taking money out of the CMO and putting it in community development. It's just not apparent from the way it appears on that page.
Oh, that's very true. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Any other councilors have comment or questions?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Councilor Novak.
Thank you. I am curious, again, first budget go round. By any chance, on a supplemental budget such as this, I'm curious as to whether the people that we put on a budget committee have reviewed this at all. Where they, I know on the main budget for the next biennium, the gentleman that I put on the committee said that committee hadn't met separately from the 2 joint meetings that we had. And I was very surprised by that, because every other committee that I've appointed someone to, they have meetings. They're supposed to, they sign on the dotted line. Yes, I can attend the meetings. So I'm just wondering what sort of input these individuals had into the supplemental budget, and whether or not, I think it would be wise. I know that there are some redundancies that have been brought to my attention with regard to the biennial budget, and maybe possibly on the supplemental budget. And I'm with all due respect to the people who work on the budget in the office. I respect you to the moon and back. You have a better understanding for certain of how these things work than I do. But my bottom line question is, the committee that we've appointed as counselors to work with the folks in the city who put the budgets together, were they given any input, any opportunity to review? And if not, is there a way that we can give them that opportunity? If not with the supplemental budget, I'd like to see them have input with both the supplemental budget and the biennial budget before the deadline of the end of June. And I'm putting that forth. I don't know if I would have to state this in a resolution or what, but I would really like to see these individuals that we've put there for their own understanding and expertise to have input, to take a look at things, to discuss with our city manager and Matt, right. I'm going to butcher this. Rutgers. I didn't butcher it. Matt Rutgers and the city manager, if the folks on the budget committee could sit down with him. I know, as I say, Chris Hansen, who I put forward, he's reviewed things and he has some, I think, really wise and helpful ideas to where we could bring some genuinely positive results with regard to our budgets. And I would like to see him have some input and the others have some input and an opportunity to review and see what they might add and how they might help. Thank you.
So the job of the budget committee ends once they approve the proposed budget. However, that doesn't mean, so they don't have a say on the supplemental budget. That is purely council. However, this year was a little bit different. Normally we try to have a budget committee meeting a little bit earlier in the year so that we can give them a forecast, kind of give them an idea of what things are looking like. So they have a general idea before we get to the budget process. This year, because of COVID, it really just didn't happen. But moving forward, we will continue to have additional budget committee work sessions. They can't deliberate unless it's at a public meeting, a noticed public meeting. Mm-hmm. So, but they can certainly give, they can certainly hear what we're looking at and and why we're making the assumptions and doing the work that we're doing. They are certainly welcome, you know, once we have the budget ready to go. And the other piece of this is that we do have a lot of different commissions that are welcome to give input for the different departments. And I'm sure that all the department directors are taking these into account as they are building their budgets. But, you know, the budget ends up being where the highest priorities are for the city. And the budget committee can certainly weigh in, and they can bring comments from, you know, the public. They can give advice, not advice to the public, but they can disseminate the information to the public probably in an easier way than we can, or even council can. But yeah, we do want the budget committee involved. This isn't one of those tasks that they are tasked with.
Well,
Thank you, Gina. Director Yeager, excuse me. I see a hand from Councilor Smith and City Manager Peter Trotzen. Marilyn, would you mind if I allow Peter to go first?
That's fine.
Go ahead, Peter, City Manager.
Thanks, Mayor. I wanted to point out for Councilor Novak that the state law about the budget committee is pretty clear and pretty specific about what their role is. But we try to go beyond that. And I try to stay in touch with the budget committee throughout the year, not just waiting for the budget process to begin. And indeed, Chris Hansen and I have spoken on many occasions about many of his ideas. And I would certainly welcome any other member of the budget committee as well to give me a call and sit down and talk about the budget process and their ideas. So it's certainly something that we'll try to do, and we do try to do, is keep in close contact with them throughout the year.
but they didn't meet before the budget.
No, they can't meet before the budget.
I mean, to discuss the budget. They never had an opportunity to give
don't.
input because they never had a scheduled meeting.
No, they did have, the budget committee did have scheduled meetings, several of them. Yeah,
That is not my understanding, sir.
no, it certainly is. And we can go back and show the schedule and I'm sure there's minutes from it as well. So
I think
I would-
without us.
Pardon me?
Don't you mean, are you asking whether they had meetings by themselves or without us?
I'm talking about without us. Yes, that they,
No.
my understanding from speaking to Mr. Hansen was that he had asked about when those meetings would take place, and
no,
he was never given any
But you can't-
information,
those
and they
meetings-
didn't meet prior to the joint meeting.
no,
with
that
everyone.
can't happen. The budget committee you are included on the budget committee.
Right.
So you can't have the 7 lay people, the 7 lay members meeting separately. That can't happen.
So that's different from the HRC and all these other committees?
The budget committee is 7 lay members and 7 counselors. And yes, there are different rules. In fact, the quorum for the budget committee is established in a very different way than the quorum for any other committee.
So what is that quorum?
Yeah.
I was afraid you would ask that. We have to
Actually,
consult.
I have that paper right here in my hand right now. I just found it.
Go
So,
ahead, Director Yeager.
so the quorum example, if you have 5 members on your governing body and you have 5 lay members, then your full budget committee is 10 people and the quorum is 6.
Mhm.
If you have vacancies on the governing body, they still count towards the quorum. So let's say you only have 3 in your governing body and you have 5 in your lay, then your quorum is still 6. However, if the vacancies are on the elector side, those aren't counted. So let's say you have 5 members, 5 governing body members, and you have 2 lay members, then the quorum is only 4. So it's a very different type of quorum. It's determined on who's the lay member and who's the governing body.
I remember that in that budgeting class. Oh gosh, what a mess.
I should point out too that, the budget committee is a creature from way back, from I think from the 60s. And even in the manual that the state puts out, they acknowledge that it hasn't had a substantial overhaul since that time. So there's some pretty unique and strange things about it, in my mind anyway.
Any other councilors have any comments or questions for Director Yeager or City Manager?
Yes. So then are we bound, just to help my understanding, we are bound with regard to what is before us? We can, there's no making any changes at this point of anything. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. You have an opportunity to make changes. However, if those changes total more than 10% in a fund, then we would have to notice it again, which would push it out. Minor changes could be made. We would probably need to go out and redo the resolution and bring it back, but changes can still be made.
There's just an awful lot I'm afraid I don't understand. And I appreciate everyone answering doing their best to answer questions. But this process, again, I'd mentioned in the other meeting, the joint session, it's for my mind, neither transparent nor easy to understand, which is what they say by law it's supposed to be. And when I say it's not transparent, I don't mean anyone's trying to hide anything. I'm saying that I look at it as a layperson, as a person who's here to serve my city, and I don't understand. And you give it explanation and I still don't understand. So I don't know if there's anything we can do about this to make it easier in the future for people such as myself who are just regular Joes to understand. Or if I'm just, I remember Peter talking about trust, and there is a degree to which I absolutely trust you, but I would also like to understand. So
we are always more than happy to take questions that you might have. I actually have a member of the public who has emailed me about 3 or 4 times asking me about various questions in the budget document, and I respond to him, and we will respond to anybody who asks questions. So please feel free to do so.
Thank you. And so when it comes to perceived redundancies in a budget or in an area where perhaps, and I know department heads are doing their best, I'm just thinking if something is brought to my attention, or I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, it looks like we could, maybe restructure this a little bit, and that would save a bundle maybe, or save something significant. Is there an opportunity? When was my golden opportunity that I think I've missed? In terms of, and you said this is a supplemental budget. This goes into effect if we pass it, which I'm assuming we will do, because I don't know what else we would do. I honestly don't. But so this would go into effect July 1st, and the budget for, no, I'm sorry.
No, the supplemental budget.
This is this year's budget.
This is this year's budget.
Mm-hmm. July 1st of this year.
No.
We're doing now is the budget we're currently in.
Say that again.
This is for the budget we're currently in.
Okay, but this budget ends when?
The June 30th.
June 30th, right. So the new budget, for the next biennium, that one starts on July 1st, correct?
Yeah.
And this, what we're talking about right now, ends on June 30th? I'm
Yes.
not understanding.
Yes.
Okay, so this supplemental budget that we're talking about, that I was all confused, that I had all these questions about, well, I could say I was confused, that I had all these questions about, costs not covered or whatever. Everything that I've mentioned from the few notes I took is only valid up until, or in force until June 30th, which is like a month from now.
Correct.
And then we
Correct.
jump into the next biennium. Thank you for your patience, my friends. Then we jump into the next biennium, and that is then where I should perhaps turn my focus in terms of, do we have an opportunity then with the budget that goes into effect, the next biennium, the July 1st budget, to scan for anything that we can, any way that we can find redundancies and maybe pare things down and maybe
Well, Councilor
save.
Novak, I'd
Yes.
like to wrap this up. You're starting a discussion about next year's budget. So we need to close this business and then we can get
Okay,
to business from the
thank
council.
you.
Councilor Smith, do you have something?
The only thing that I can add, most things have been covered by other people, was that this is basically reconciling the checkbook at the end of the year,
Correct.
accounting for deposits and withdrawals and making
Thank
sure that you've taken care of things and you move on to the next one. That's what we're
helps.
doing with the supplemental budget.
That helps. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm done.
Any other counselors? Thank you, Counselor Smith. Any other counselors have anything? So if there's nothing else, we have a motion on a resolution, excuse me, on page 13.
I
Council,
move that we pass the resolution adopting a supplemental budget for biennium 2019-2021.
Second.
we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Looks like the motion passed. 6-0. I heard everybody's voice. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next agenda item is, give me a second, my computer's got to switch screens. Nope, not that one. The next on the agenda is a quasi-judicial public hearing regarding planning files CP 01-21 and Zebra Charlie 01-21. Comprehensive plan land use map amendment from existing light commercial to proposed general commercial zoning map amendment from the NC or neighborhood commercial zoning district to the proposed CC community commercial zoning district. These applications are sought to permit future development of the same property for vehicle services purposes as proposed by the applicant. I call to order the quasi-judicial public hearing at 6:51 p.m. If you wish to testify, there are 2 options available. There will be described on the agenda. Do any members wish to declare a conflict of interest? No one declares a conflict of interest. We did have a couple people that wish to testify. Do I get down there? Let me see. Nope, nope. Do any members wish to report any ex parte contact? Do any members wish to report a site visit? Do any members wish to abstain from participating in the proceedings? Does anyone wish to challenge the city council's right to determine this matter or the participation of any council member in this hearing and decision? If so, please turn your mic or turn on your camera and raise your hand to be called upon. Or if you are attending by phone, please unmute yourself and state your name and so you're going to be called upon. Okay. At this time, I call the reading of the meeting procedures. That's what I'm doing now, I believe. And Matt Rutgers will be reading that.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Apologize, my camera is not cooperating with me. So for all those wishing to testify, please be aware that you must raise an issue with enough detail to afford the city council and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue if you later want to raise that issue on appeal. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the approval standards staff will describe or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code that you believe apply to the decision. If additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the city council may allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with enough detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court.
Where are we at now? Okay. At this time, I'll call on Stafford. Did anybody have any? There was one person signed up to talk, and that was Connie and Glenn Duncan. Are they here today? Excuse me, Carol and Glenn Duncan. Excuse my mistake. I don't see. Sean, do you see anyone by that name? or Matt?
I don't, Mayor, but they could have also been knocked off by the power blip that affected Counselor Smith and Counselor Johnson.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Should we call them? Mary, what's the procedure for something like this? This is new to me.
I'm back. This is
Okay.
Bessie. I'm back. We had a little flicker in the power and the internet. So I'm good. So Marilyn will probably be on too.
So thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I believe we left off at number 9 on the mayor's guide, and number 9 is you're gonna receive a staff report from Travis North, and then that happens before we take the public testimony anyway. So it might be a good opportunity right now to have Travis do that staff report, and then that gives time for the person who signed up, and that's the appropriate order anyway.
Okay.
Thank
At this
you.
time, I call upon the staff report from Project Planner Travis North.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. Who's ever running the controls, if you could give me the ability to share my screen, please.
You should have that ability.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
So I won't be able to see anybody once I share. So can everybody see that?
Yeah, Travis.
Just trying to get it to full screen. Okay. So thank you. As the mayor was saying, this is a comprehensive plan map amendment and a zoning map amendment, CPO 121 and ZCO 121. The process is a quasi judicial type 4 decision-making criteria for the comp plan amendment is ADC 2.220, and for the zoning map amendment is ADC 2.740. Those criteria were addressed in the staff report that everybody should have a copy of. We gave the mandatory 35-day notice to DLCD and the mandatory 20-day public notice before the first Planning Commission meeting. Planning Commission met on May 3rd and recommended unanimously for approval. And here we are tonight. So just a summary, this application involves 2 properties, 2515 Gary Street Southeast here and 1810 Grand Prairie Road Southeast here. The request for a comprehensive plan map amendment is from light commercial to general commercial, and the request for a zoning map amendment is from neighborhood commercial to community commercial. Comprehensive plan designations carry compatible zoning districts with them. The current designation of light commercial allows neighborhood commercial zoning and office professional zoning. The requested general commercial comprehensive map designation allows for neighborhood commercial, office professional, community commercial, and regional commercial. And again, they are requesting the CC designation there. Here's a map of the comprehensive plan designation. You can see the kind of light pink here is your light commercial. This darker yellow is medium density residential, and surrounding it in this lighter yellow is single family low density residential.
Is that in the cul-de-sac also?
Where would that be, Councilor Olson? Here?
Yep.
Yeah, so this cul-de-sac, yes, that is correct. That is a medium density residential.
And we have 2 maps. One is comp plan and the other is zoning map.
Yeah, the comp plan will tell you what's allowed with the zonings there. So only, as is discussed on that previous slide, only certain zones are allowed in each comp plan designation.
So where are we talking about making the zone change?
The zone change is the same properties. It's these 2 here, and these are currently zoned NC neighborhood commercial, and they are requesting a zone change to community commercial. So you can see To the east of them here, they have a commercial office professional. And to the south of them here, where these single family homes are, is a neighborhood commercial. Across the street is a residential medium. And then we have RS 6.5 surrounding it on the outer ring here, which is one of our single family zoning districts. So in order for them to go to the community commercial, they have to also get the comprehensive plan designation from light commercial to general commercial. Does that make sense?
So can you tell us what those two commercial zones would allow? Grocery store and the lighter commercial, or?
Yeah, I can. Neighborhood commercial, it's meant more for kind of a pocket, kind of tucked into our residential districts. If you imagine something kind of like, like the neighborhood coffee shop, the neighborhood convenience store that you can go to, the Dairy Mart, things like that is what it's kind of intended for. Community commercial is a little, allows a little more uses to it, probably the most commercial uses in our zoning district tables. I believe the TPR analysis that deals with traffic looked at drive-through restaurants. So drive-through restaurants are the most intensive uses, and they tend to compare those two. So in neighborhood commercial, you can actually do a drive-through restaurant, but it can't have outdoor speakers and it can't have drive-through lanes. So they're just trying to person to person, voice to voice, do away with that loudspeaker. Yes, Mayor Johnson.
Well, thank you. It's been quite a while since I thought about this kind of stuff, and I needed a review.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Johnson, did you have something?
What is currently on that corner?
So you have an auto service?
That's what I thought. I'm in the right place now. Okay.
Yeah. You have an auto service, and then you have like a convenience store.
Yeah, Bob's Market's there.
Yeah. And so kind of the ironic thing on that one is it actually isn't currently permitted in that zone. It's called a legal non-conforming use. And so it would become actually permitted if we moved it from neighborhood commercial to community commercial. But I just want to circle back to something Councilor Olson was saying there when I was talking. So although the highest uses, the most intense uses are drive-through restaurants, the applicant, who I'm sure will mention this as well, for this larger parcel, the purpose of the zoning change they have indicated is to put gas station pumps there, which isn't allowed in the NC, but is allowed in the CC zoning district.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Councilor Johnson had a question first.
Yeah, I want to say that this is in my neighborhood. It took me a while to figure out. In fact, we went by it today. I had it like 2 blocks over, and I thought that's not right. So anyway, and it was Bob's Market. And now James Garage is there, and actually it's got ingress, egress, real good connections. And in that part of town, we have no gas stations or anything like that. So it may be a plus. And so I guess I don't know how it would be laid out, and we won't know that anyway, but it's a large enough area that I don't think it's going to do any harm, and it might help our neighborhood. That's all. Thank you.
Councilor, who was next? Councilor Novak.
Yes, thanks. I think Councilor Johnson sort of helped me get a grasp on this when she said that they're looking at putting a gas station there, and they could use a gas station there in that area. That's her neighborhood. She knows it. My thought and my question initially was whether this was an area that has been referred to. There have been areas that I'm sure I remember Councilor Bartholomew saying where we had food deserts, which made me wonder if we could put a grocery store as opposed to just a convenience store. But perhaps if there's a need for a gas station, if there is a need for something like that, then I think it would make sense to do such a thing. And if there's a need for a grocery store and they could do a grocery store, then I think that would be great. Whatever that area needs, is something I think we should try to get them to be able to have.
Thank you, Councilor Novak. Any other councilor have any questions or concerns or would like to address Travis?
Okay, so just because Councilor Novak mentioned it, grocery stores are allowed in the CC zoning district. So,
Okay.
and probably one of the big things here is the CC zoning district is intended to be along arterial streets, and both Grand Prairie Road and Gary Street are classified in the transportation plan as arterial streets. So,
Thank you, Travis.
yeah. Surrounding land uses, it's just kind of sometimes to help people kind of see what's there. You have some kind of the high density multifamily there, a lot of single family homes, and then several religious institutions.
Yeah, Brookdale, right across the street. Okay.
Yep. Statewide planning goals have to be addressed in the staff report. Relevant goals are citizen involvement, which is the point of this meeting. Land use planning, economic development, the economic analysis. I'm getting that wrong. Went with the housing needs inventory. Did classify these properties as underdeveloped. Goal 12, transportation, and goal 14, urbanization. Key findings that are also in the staff report. Proposed map changes will have no significant impact on the existing transportation system. Subject properties recognized as partially vacant, served with water, sewer, and storm, additional capacity for more development. So we're not adding sewer, we're not adding water extensions or anything with this. It's just businesses tapping into what's there. Policies of the comprehensive plan encourage density, reduction, and dependency of the automobile. That is the applicant's response. I'm sure she can talk more about that. Subject properties located at the intersection of two arterial streets. Similarly, the CC zone applies to properties located along arterial streets. So the conclusion was the requested general commercial comprehensive plan designation is consistent with statewide planning goals. The proposed zoning map amendment from NC to CC meets all applicable review criteria. Therefore, staff have recommended approval of the proposed comprehensive plan and zoning map amendment. So that concludes my report.
Okay, I'm trying to get back to the resolution. Give me a second. Okay, mayor's guidance.
I can stop sharing my screen here if that would help.
So I asked the council again, excuse me, Councilor Johnson does have something else?
Yes, it just came to mind because right across the street is South Albany Community Church. And then, like you said, it's the assisted living, not just, but rest.
Independent
Living Center, yeah, Brookdale. And so I was just wondering if, I don't know if Ron Irish is on or not, but I was just wondering, in this case, if there was planning to be like a stoplight at Grand Prairie and Geary, if that's in the works, because that would really help, I think. Because it's gonna be heck for those trucks to, if it's a gas station, it's gonna be heck for the trucks to get in and out. So I just wondered, oh yeah, Ron is on, if he could help me.
My mic's working, I can help. So our transportation system plan does not identify a signal at that intersection right now. So there's a proposal for one. We upzone properties like we are with this one.
Nice shot.
Traffic increases in the system in the future. Our next TSP may very well consider a signal. So at the moment, there's not a plan for one, but that changes every time we do a TSP amendment based on what we've done in the past, what we expect. So it makes it more likely we're going to have it through there than less because we're doing something more intense.
Okay, so just kind of wait and see is what the answer is. Wrong answer, Ron. Wrong answer. All right, thanks.
Okay, any other councilors have anything? Thank you, Councilor Johnson. We are good there. So the next thing on the agenda, the item would be, we will now take testimony from the applicant And would the applicant please state your name, address, and make any comments you may have for the council.
Good evening, Albany City Council. My name is Laura LaRock. I work with Udall Engineering and Land Surveying, located at 63 East Ash in Lebanon, Oregon. I'm representing the property owners in this application. So as Travis mentioned, there's 2 properties that are proposed to have amendments to the comprehensive plan and zone maps that accompany them. The purpose for the comprehensive plan designation change is to allow a broader scope of zone that could be applied to it. So the comprehensive plan as it stands now only has 2 implementing zones. So when I say implementing zone, it means that there are 2 zone designations that would be applicable to that particular comprehensive plan map, and allow them our permitted uses under each of those zones. The request is to change the comprehensive plan to a general commercial, and it is what the word indicates. It allows a broader range of commercial zones that could be compatible to that area of town. So opposed to just the 2 zones that are permitted now under the comprehensive plan designation that it has, there would be 4 different zoning designations that could be what is called compatible with that particular area. The purpose for the comprehensive plan zone is as indicated. It's going with a request to change the neighborhood commercial zone designation to a commercial zone designation. The purpose for this request from the applicant standpoint is that it allows for a greater number of uses that would be permitted in that zone. Not only allows a greater number of uses, but it also decreases the types of application review processes that go with those. So while certain uses may be permitted in both zones, both what's existing now and what's proposed, in some cases, the application review process in itself could have less process that's tied to that. And then in addition, there are some uses that are not permitted under the current zone that would be under the proposed zone. So it opens up a lot of different possibilities for both of the sites that are involved in this application. Specifically allows a use that one of the property owners is interested in to redeveloping the property. And they have submitted an application for a site plan review for that use that would have a further review to actually how the site would be set up in terms of orientation on the site and how it meet the development code standards such as landscaping, screening, buffering, and things of that nature. In terms of this application, I think Travis said it pretty great. The comprehensive plan is the city's long-range vision for the community. So it does say that commercial is anticipated for this area. What the request is to increase the intensity of the allowed commercial uses. The zone is the tool that allows the regulations to be in place. So the zone map is the one that's tied to what is permitted in terms of use. And siting requirements. So things like setbacks and lot coverage and things like that are all tied to the zone. For this particular property, the applicant took a look at the site before he purchased it, found that the site's located on 2 arterial streets. The land uses that surround it are broad. So as you mentioned, there's a community church, there's assisted living facility, as well as offices and residential, so a mix of uses. And we thought it would be appropriate to introduce the commercial to this area that would be supported by the roads that border it, also the utilities that are already provided to this site, and allow for a greater utilization of land as it's currently underdeveloped at this time, and it has potential to be further redeveloped that could be providing goods and services in closer proximity to the neighboring surrounding community. So as they mentioned, there's a lot of different studies that go involved in these types of requests. The applicant looked to the city's economic opportunity analysis and found that there is a demand for commercial zone designations for properties that are in this size. So there is a demand for parcels that are right in the acre range for commercial uses. So this does fit what the city has found, that there is a demand for this. So that's following what the study has shown. It also is fitting in terms of utilizing your facilities. So you already have streets that are developed. There's already public utilities that are brought to the site. So it's not really an intensive site to redevelop. Lastly, there was a study done by a transportation consultant that took a look at the site that says, you know, what can be used on the site today and what would be the highest use on the site. The highest use for the proposed zone is a fast food, I can speak, fast food restaurant. That fast food restaurant would only add just a few more trips to the site than it is already able to serve, which says that the site would be adequate for the new zone because you wouldn't be creating any conflicts by having more traffic capacity come to the site than what already has the ability to do so. So I think that about wraps it up. Thought it was appropriate due to the location of the abutting arterial streets. Public utilities are available. Not going to cause any conflicts in terms of increasing trip generation to the site. And it fits the city's long-term plans for introducing some more commercial uses within a site that is ready to be redeveloped. So with that, I'll wrap up my presentation and turn it over to the City Council for questions.
Council, thank you very much, Laura. Appreciate it. Council, do you have Councilor Johnson? Your hand's up.
Yeah, I just wondering, we're going to we want to rezone all the pink area, but now is the applicant only doing the part of it or the whole thing? I mean, I was thinking like the whole convenience store, like going, or James Garage increasing. Do we know that, or is it just the zoning that we're worried about right now?
The application that before you today, it just concerns the comprehensive plan and zone map amendments.
Okay.
Those are specific to the two properties. The one is located right on the corner of Geary and Grand Prairie.
Okay, that's
and
changed.
Also the larger site that has access to both of those streets at 2515 Geary Street, which is currently a convenience store.
Okay, so we're going a little bit farther with the zoning to allow, like, because I know to the south of what used to be Bob's Market are houses and stuff, but we're going to like rezone that whole works there, including the residential. Is that right?
So if there is surrounding land that would remain neighborhood commercial and office professional. So to the east of the site is office professional buildings that include businesses such as insurance guides.
And there's some sort of a help place for addicts and stuff like that. I can't remember the name of it. So they would stay residential. So we're only rezoning the little lot on the corner and the convenience store lot. Is that right?
That is all that's included in this proposal. That's correct.
Oh, well, that's not what the map shows. I'm a little confused.
So the maps that you may be looking at, the colors are pretty close, so it can be confusing, but there are parcels to the east of the subject site that is zoned office professional. Those are developed with single family residence and also office professional buildings, like a suite style development. Yeah.
So they're zoned commercial light now, and only the two lots are going to the community commercial.
Yes, that's correct.
I got it now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Olson?
So to clear it up for me, are we just talking about the two properties that are cross-hatched on the maps on 72 and 73?
That's correct, Mr. Olson.
Is that just
That's
the
where I
two that
am.
are cross-hatched?
That's correct. Yes, that's indicating the two properties that are part of this application. Proposed to have the change to the comprehensive plan and zone map amendment.
Thank you.
Councilor Johnson, do you have another question? Because your hand's still up. Thank you. Any other councilors have any questions or like to make a comment? Hearing none. We'll now be taking public testimony first from those in favor of the applications, followed by those in opposition with concerns, and finally from anyone who is neutral. If anyone wishes to enter an exhibit into the record as part of their testimony, please briefly describe the exhibit and then email it to the cdaa@cityofalbany.net. Those who registered to speak during this meeting will now be called upon to present verbal testimony. And the names that I have on the list are Carol and Glenn Duncan. Are Carol and Glenn Duncan available? I did see that they did submit a letter in your packet. Did council see the letter in the packet? You
I did.
Okay, you did. Thank you. I don't see them here, so I'm going to continue. I got their names. Should I read their name? Already read their names. We will now be taking public testimony from those who did not register to speak beforehand. If you would like to speak, turn on your camera and raise your hand to be called upon by the chair and unmuted. If you are attending by phone, please unmute yourself and state your name so the mayor can call on you to speak. Hearing no comments, item 15, does any member of the audience wish to speak in favor of the application? Does any member of the audience wish to speak in opposition or express concerns about the application? Does any member of the audience wish to speak neutrally of the application? Does the applicant have any rebuttal testimony? Oh, so I'm sorry, I didn't see you down there, Mr. Shokow.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I just was attending tonight's meeting, so I'm very neutral in this. I would just say that if we are going to be adding anything onto this property, I do think that keeping the idea of a street light in that area in the forefront would be a good idea, because I do know when I do travel on that road, I have to sit at that intersection for quite a while. So just something to comment on is maybe keep that idea of a light in the future.
Thank you very much. Did I pronounce your
That's
name? Shuko, right? I pronounced it right?
Shuko, yeah, like shoes, like a shoe company.
I don't want to butcher your name, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Does any other member like to speak neutrally about the application? Okay, now do you have any rebuttal to her statement?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No, there's no testimony. Does anyone have any procedural questions that would like to raise at this time? If so, please turn on your camera and raise your hand to be called upon. Or if you are attending by phone, please unmute yourself and state your name so the chair can call on you to speak. Hearing none, I declare this public hearing to be closed at 7:23 p.m. Does any council wish to discuss the case and ask questions of the staff? Okay, council, there's an ordinance for your consideration. There's any hands up? I don't see any. Oh, there you are. Councilor Olson.
Yeah, the letter we received, and I don't recall the names, but I got the impression that they were opposed to this zone change. And I'm wondering if staff could point out where they live by any chance on one of the maps that we have here.
Yeah, I can do that. Just let me share my screen again. And so this is going a little bit from memory because I don't have it in front of me. So if another staff member knows otherwise,
exactly
please
where it's
speak
at.
up. It's right here.
Right there.
It's these people right here, and I don't know if I can zoom in for you, but
They're right under the arrow thing.
yeah, they're right underneath the arrow. They're right there. off of 26th Place, and then it seems like from the letter, their backyard is kind of facing the property. Does that help?
Yes, I'm disappointed they didn't show up to explain their, I found their letter a bit difficult to understand. And I'm disappointed they didn't show up to explain what the concerns were.
Well, the letter spells out, so what will we do in the case where we'd like more information from them? Or just their only opportunity to speak?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I haven't seen the letter. Can you just kind of tell me a little bit about it?
It's a
Sure.
fairly short letter. I wonder if someone could read it.
Well, I don't, Mary, is it okay if I read the letter? Or Sean?
Yeah, it's okay that you read the letter, Mayor.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and do that.
You're the mayor, you can do what you want.
I found out that that's not true. City council members, this is from Carol Duncan, her email address. City council members, these are our comments regarding the proposed rezoning of the property located at 2515 Geary Street Southeast, Albany, Oregon 97322, and 1810 Grand Prairie Road Southeast, Albany 97322. We request that the proposal for rezoning from neighborhood commercial to community commercial be rejected. This impacts our home at 1821 26th Place Southeast, Albany 97322 in these ways. 1, requires the quality of life, reduces the quality of life of outdoor family gatherings in the backyard patio, which is used for barbecues, open propane fire pit, and outdoor eating. Number 2, potentially reduces the property value by 8 to 10%, according to real estate agent Jake Lucy of Coldwell Banker Real Estate. The risk of pump fires due to electric static from cell phones and improper filming techniques is a concern, though very rare it has happened. Thank you for your consideration for our comments. Regards, Glenn and Carol Duncan. I have their number here. I will not read that on the city council meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Does everybody get that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, any other comments, city council?
Yes, I think I'm muted. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not. Okay.
You're good.
Thank you. My comment in light of this letter would be, is it absolutely set in stone, the gas pumps there? I mean, what's the likelihood of a grocery store or fast food place instead of that? And would that have a different impact for these homeowners?
So it's this kind of a unique case, because if Councilor Novak, I know you haven't been involved in one of these, but almost always we recommend to the council, don't consider what's proposed, right?
Yeah.
And we tell you that
Okay.
because they could propose something, that you all really like, and then as soon as they get the comp plan and zone change, they could pull that application and do any of the other legal uses that are allowed in that zone, right? It seems like they've put a fair amount of time and effort into the site plan for the gas station. So, you never know. You should judge it on whether you're comfortable with the zone and the full range of uses that are allowed in that zone. The other thing I would say is that they still have to complete the site plan review, right? And so the site plan review is where we take a closer look at kind of the on-site impacts, the layout of the parking lot, the landscaping, the buffering, the setbacks from the houses and all that stuff. We're just not to that level yet, because most people don't want to put that money into all that until they know they can actually do the use in the zone, right? So there'll be another opportunity for this neighbor to comment on that proposal, right? That'll go out. The site plan review will go out for public comment, just like this one. The only difference being is it's a what's called a type 1L, and those are kept at the staff level, right? And so, but they can do the same thing. They can weigh in. They can give us comments. The appeals would go to the planning commission, right? So they kind of still have some recourse there to join that conversation and make sure the additional opportunity for comment. But right now we're really just looking at the comp plan in the zone change and whether you're comfortable with that full range of uses.
I appreciate that, and that does definitely help me knowing that sometimes what's proposed doesn't actually come to pass. I'm just curious as to, regardless of what they do, whether it's a gas station or a grocery store or a fast food restaurant, these homeowners who've expressed their concern, are they impacted the same way, minus the possibility of a gas cell phone fire? Regardless of what's done on that property, are they impacted no matter what? That's my question, or we don't know.
It's tough for me to comment on it because they're mentioning stuff I don't like. I'm not an expert in, gas stations igniting, which they seem to mention in their letter, or real estate values, right? It's just something that I personally not comfortable talking about, right? But, most commercial uses kind of have the same setback requirements, the same landscaping requirements, things like that, right? The real difference is just some generate more traffic than others, right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you kindly.
Thanking the Councilor Novak. Councilor Smith, you had a question?
Just a comment. I lived in this neighborhood for 41 years, and that grocery store used to be a full-on grocery store, more of a supermarket than it is now. It's a very large convenience store now. So there was a lot more traffic at the time. Also, the auto shop now was a gas station with pumps. And so the use on that property has been a little more intense in the past with the same configuration. At the time those buildings were used more intensely, the neighborhood where the Duncans live was a vacant lot, and as well as the neighborhood across the street where the senior living facility is. That was an empty field for a long time. But I've seen different uses, or more intense uses there, and I don't know that anybody would really notice the difference if there was a change to add gas pumps back, although there would be considerably more than the two that were at the original gas station. And I know don't consider the use, but I'm just throwing in a little history there.
Right.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, if there's no other comment, there is one ordinance for your consideration in your packet.
I move that the city council adopt the ordinance to amend the comprehensive plan map from light commercial LC to general commercial GC and zoning map from neighborhood commercial NC to community commercial CC as identified in the staff report dated April 26, 2021 and referenced under planning files CP 0121 and ZC 0121. This motion is based on the findings and conclusions in the staff report to the Planning Commission and City Council and findings in support of the decision made during deliberations on this matter.
Second.
Good afternoon.
I think the attorney was supposed to do that.
I think the city attorney's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Well,
Good reading, Ray.
Well, I'll just ask the city attorney to read it.
Ray's motion is fine. I just have to read the ordinance. So
Yes.
I wouldn't be
Just
the one
going
to
off of what our staff report.
No,
said,
your motion is appropriate, Councilor Krasinski. It's just that I will read the ordinance at this point for the first reading, if that's okay with the mayor.
All right.
Yes, it is.
All right. An ordinance amending ordinance number 4836, which adopted the City of Albany Comprehensive Plan and Map, and amending ordinance number 4441, which adopted the City of Albany Zoning Map, by amending the Albany Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Map and adopting findings for the properties located at Lynn County Assessor's Map number 11S-03W-17BB, tax lot 3101 and 3200.
I would move that the ordinance be read a second time in title only.
Second.
All good, Sean.
May
So
we have a vote on that,
just take
please?
a vote on that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
I'm going to oppose it, not because I'm particularly opposed to the ordinance, but I'd like to have it wait till our next meeting in case something does turn up.
Like what?
Okay, so the ordinance will be come back in the next meeting and the automatic second reading.
Yep.
Okay, and once
That's
the
correct.
and so we ask for a roll call vote at this time.
Well, in terms of the second reading,
You're opposing the second reading?
yes, I am.
Okay, so it's going to have to come back to the next meeting.
Yes, this item has been concluded then, and it will come back to the next agenda for an automatic second reading.
Yep.
You can go ahead and move on to the next agenda item now.
Okay, thank you. I'm doing that. Next agenda item is mobile food court code. We'll go up here to the agenda.
Excuse me, Mayor John.
Public business from the public.
Thank you. Excuse me for interrupting.
Okay, business from the public. I'm like, wait a minute. All right, so business from the public. Let me go back to my script. Whew. Business from the public. Business from the public is for persons wishing to address the council. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes unless it's extended by the mayor. Councilors should hold their comments until business from the council, until all written material has been forwarded to the councilors and entered in the public record. Instructions for getting copies of the public records is on the city website under business from the public. The following persons have submitted items for the record: Daniel Dietz, Albany, regarding food carts, and the following persons signed up to speak: Mr. Bill Case. Is Bill Case with us?
I don't see any phone users on the
one.
call.
I see one. That's not Bill Case. Did you emailed the information I asked you, right?
Yep.
Okay. So hearing no, is that him? Nope. Hearing nothing, I'll move to the next agenda item.
Mr.
First,
Dietz is on.
say again.
Mr. Dietz is on.
Mr. Case is on.
camera.
Mr. Dietz, he didn't sign up to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Council, would you like to hear from Mr. Dietz?
Councilors, you received the letter from Mr. Dietz. We emailed that to you about noon, and then the next step would be up to the mayor.
Council, would you like to hear from Mr. Dietz?
Sure.
Yeah.
More than that. Everybody's good? Okay, Mr. Dietz, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time. I did submit a letter and I did have some concerns about how the proposed ordinance might impact the entrepreneurs and operators of food carts. One additional issue came up for me that I've just been kind of sitting with, which is just the sort of regulatory tension between how we treat brick and mortar restaurants and how we treat food carts, and just sort of the issue of fairness between those two types of businesses. I think, you know, it's pretty obvious that brick and mortar restaurants have much higher costs in terms of rent or owning their properties, and then are also subject to quite a few regulations. And as I sit with that tension, it just keeps coming back to me that, you know, if we're thinking about, hey, how do we make this a little bit more fair so that all of our established restaurants that are doing great, you know, feeding the community, enduring tough times, can stick around? And then I just sort of come back to, you know, is the solution more regulations? And I did some research and I found a report by the US Chamber of Commerce where they found that food carts are kind of a bellwether for the amount of entrepreneurial opportunity in a community. So they kind of tell us how much small businesses from different communities in particular are able to participate in local economies. And I also found that the biggest obstacle to food carts getting off the ground and having success is actually regulation and permitting. That was the conclusion of the US Chamber of Commerce. So I just wanted to share all of that perspective. I think, you know, as I look at those ordinances, they're complicated for me to read. I think that someone trying to get into business would have a very hard time coming up with a scaled site plan and a circulation plan of vehicle and pedestrian traffic. And I think that's a big ask for the small businesses that are operating these carts. And these folks may or may not have their MBAs. I don't know. But I think for a lot of people, those barriers are going to become too steep. And I worry about the folks who are in business and how many of them are going to be able to comply with that ordinance. And I worry about the folks who might one day have the dream to do this. So for all those reasons, I would ask that the council proceed with caution around this ordinance. The last concern that came up for me is just, I know given the tension between brick and mortar restaurants and food carts, this can be a challenging issue. And I hope that if there are any potential conflicts or people who might have an interest in the outcome of this ordinance one way or the other, will carefully meditate on those and declare conflicts of interest as appropriate. Other than that, I wish you the best of luck in deciding this tough issue.
Thank you, Mr. Dietz, for speaking with us today. Any other business? So did Mr. Case make it in? Okay, council, hold your comments till business from the council. And we'll move on to first reading of ordinance adoption of resolution, revised mobile food cart code, Christian Bell, page 74 to 79.
Mayor, would you like me to talk on some of his points, or?
I think we'd all appreciate that, would you?
Okay. So as far as his concern about it hurting the mobile food unit or small business, these requirements aren't really an extension or an increased ask for food trucks. So currently in Albany, if you don't want to do any of the site plan stuff, circulation, parking, all of that, you could only be within Albany for 30 days in a year, which is way more restrictive than this code is. If you do want to do all that stuff, planning's happy to help you, but you could only get to 120 days. So you'll still have to have a site plan approval. That process through planning does take quite a good amount of time, as they have an immense amount of workload. So this process will actually speed that up. And then that site plan circulation and all that, that's the one that's a lifetime permit. So unless they're planning on moving that cart on the property owner themselves, they won't have to resubmit that. So once a property owner has been granted that, they don't have to continue to do that yearly. And hopefully most of the property owners who are having these trucks circulate onto their property will, they're benefiting from that. They would also help their truck get there. As far as the tensions with brick and mortar and food trucks, in my experience with this, I haven't found those between actual restaurants and food trucks. It's more people who have an idea of what food trucks and restaurants are, but not actually the owners of each individual one as such. And actually, if you read a lot of articles from LA and large cities, a lot of those restaurants really do appreciate the food trucks because they do drive the food scene and kind of push innovation and people wanting to try new things. As far as
You froze. It's like he froze. Officer Shandell, you frozen on us. Did somebody text him? Should we go on and come back? Council, there he goes. I think it's coming back in now. Are you back with us? There we go.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. So I'm not sure where I left off before I froze.
About brick and mortar businesses appreciating driving the economy or driving.
Yeah, so in the articles I've read and who I've talked to, there's really no tension between those two agencies. It's more of a perception and what others are perceiving and wanting to push into that realm. And as far as his letter goes, as I went through that, about the fees and storages and all that kind of information that he's concerned about, it's great to be concerned about that. A lot of the stuff within our code are state regulations already. So the storage, if you're going to have a storage unit on your property, you need a license through Linn County for that. So those are all regulated already. That's not stuff we're going to over-regulate. It's stuff we're calling out and they should be following anyways. A lot of the additions to our code are what is in addition to the state code, but just call out as what we see as important. And then finally, the amount of work we've done with the food trucks themselves and the Food Truck Association has been really heavy on making sure that this code is a benefit to not only our community, but to the food trucks because of that kind of, not misapplication, but kind of the variance in the application of our current code because of it not being its own specific code. You know, some trucks aren't feeling that they're being regulated the same. So this would make it an even ball field across the whole field, and just make it a lot easier for them to progress, be in Albany for 365 days. And at the end of the day, if we even extended our 30-day permit, it would be a $600 fee. We're asking, this is going to be a $200. If they want to do the 120-day, if we were to extend that to be 3, if you did out the calculations, it'd be $356. So this again is the cheapest option to do all that, because we believe that this will decrease staff time and the need to continue to go to these locations.
Okay, so that's a rebuttal as a response to him. You're on page 74. There's an ordinance. You're going to talk us through that before we do anything. Go ahead, Councilor Johnson.
Yes, before we get to the ordinance, I just going to want to tell Chris that I have only 2 issues. The additional lighting, you know, it's not so bad in the summertime because, you know, you have the sunlight, but when it gets to be wintertime, the additional lighting just seems to be necessary. And then also the number of tables and the heating. I mean, I guess the businesses downtown, you know, if they have outdoor eating, then or seating, then they have more heaters and stuff. And so it's just minor things, but I just wondered if there's any way of fixing that a little bit, tweaking it a little to where they could do it a little bit more.
So again, this code is meant for the more transient type food truck establishments that are able to get up and move. If they wish to have that stuff, there are ways to get there, but they would have to go through the planning process. So currently, if they go through the planning process for the 120 days, like I said, it takes some time, and in reality, they shouldn't open until that's done. This process is more narrow because it doesn't go through all of that, you know, see planners, all that additional information to allow for that. So that's why we're not allowing that. It's supposed to be if they get up, pick up and leave, they could do that with all of their items. If they wish to do that, they can do that. They have to go through planning though. So
okay, but if they want to be here 365 days a year, then if they just want to come onto the property, I mean, even for a year, if they want extra lighting or extra tables, then they can't. They have to go through the planning. Is that correct?
So even if they put 2 tables, tables will require an ADA access permit. So
I mean, why?
So because you're placing it by placing tables in a food establishment or a food eating area, state code requires that it's ADA accessible. So
that's kind of silly if they're just, yeah, I mean, they're gonna wheel up or they're gonna walk up to the food cart and.
Yeah, so now you're having 2 standards. So you're having, if people are just gonna walk up and leave, then those are standards. They're not gonna put a table there. They're gonna walk up, take their food and go home. There's no standard for ADA compliance. The state covers all of that. The minute you put a table, you need ADA compliance. The minute you, you also need on-site restrooms. But with the state code, they say you could have it within 500 feet as long as that's with the county. So there's a lot of different regulations depending on what you want to do with the site. And by extending that out and giving those regulations, the cost will actually quite increase to the property, to the food truck to have that. Now they're more than welcome to do it, but that's going to be a planning building process if they want to make it more of a permanent site.
Okay, and I guess I would want to bring out the point that this is a kind of a living document. If you go along and you find it's a little bit problematic, then you can come back and say, hey, you know, we've had these issues, because you're not going to know until people start doing it. So I guess I'd be okay as long as we have the opportunity to try it for a little while and then see what happens.
So you're 100% correct. It is a living document, and I've talked to Leah Tucker with the Oregon Food Truck Association multiple times, and she's been on so many city boards developing these codes.
Yeah.
And really, like, our whole focus was to make this the best code in Oregon and the most accessible for the most food trucks, and within reason of keeping what the city wants. So she does feel, and I do feel, that it is like the example in Oregon currently.
All right. Well, we always want to be number one. So thank you very much, Chris.
So I had Councilor Kopsinski. I saw your hand first. You put it down. Are you done? Nothing? Okay, then Councilor Novak and then Councilor Smith.
Yes, thank you. Quick question. The difference, Officer Schindel, between an authorization application and a permit application. That's almost the same word, and I know there must be a distinction, but would you please enlighten me?
Yeah, so I had to separate out what the property owner was and the truck was. So the authorization application is for the property owner, and then the permit application is for the food truck. I had to try to make it different.
Okay. Thank you kindly. So then the property owner is paying one fee and the food truck owner is paying another fee, and it's not the food truck owner paying two fees, correct?
That's exactly correct.
Thank you.
I did put within the authorization application, in case you had a property owner that was fine with you being there, but really didn't want to go through the process. I did put subsection 3, allowing for the mobile food unit owner to go through that process, so they're not hindered by it.
I think that's very wise and helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Novak. Put your hand down, please. Councilor Smith, you're next up.
Thank you, and it's nice to be back in the meeting. I just wanted to say that I have been impressed by the fact that the food truck operators requested this ordinance, requested the help from the city to even things out, and that it has the support of the state organization and the local food truck operators. That means a lot to me in my decision making. So I hope other people take note of that. We're trying to help, and they see this as help.
Yeah, I was really happy with their participation as well.
Yeah.
Any other councilors have anything? No. So do we have a motion? There's an ordinance on page, let me go there.
74.
74. Do we have a motion?
The city attorney will read the ordinance first.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you, Mary.
An ordinance amending the Albany Municipal Code, Title 5, by adding a new chapter 5.06 titled Mobile Food Units.
Do you have a motion?
Move that the ordinance be read a second time in title only.
Do you have a second?
Second.
You have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. City Attorney?
An ordinance amending the Albany Municipal Code, Title 5, by adding a new chapter 5.06 titled Mobile Food Units.
You have a motion?
Move for the adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, Dick, you have a question? I can't hear you. You're muted.
I was saying aye.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like the motion passed. Those opposed, same sign? Then opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Chris Schindel, and thank you, where's the gentleman at, Mr. Dietz, for attending. Okay, then we have the food unit fees is the next one. You want to talk us through this?
Sorry. So yeah, so the fees, like I had mentioned during the code section, they are a lot less than what they would currently pay if we just extended out what we're currently doing. Like I said, these are $200 for the truck, $100 for the property owner. Extending out the 30 days would be $600 total. Extending out the 120 days to allow for that program would be a $356 total. When looking across the state in the top 12 cities per capita or per population, the lowest I found was 4305. and then diving into that, it wasn't so much of a regulatory, they didn't really regulate them as they were to just register as a business. And then the highest was $1,200 a year, which is, I mean, to me, it's astronomical, but it's so varying. So really, I took into account what there is and kind of what we expect staff costs to be, because we're not trying to make this as a revenue generator. It's just purely cover costs. So we accounted for 1 hour within the permit application process and 1 hour to code enforcement and re-inspections. And that's where those figures.
Questions about these fees? No comments. City Attorney, would you read the resolution?
The city attorney does not need to read resolutions, so the council is free to make a motion if they'd like to.
Council, you have a motion?
I move to approve the resolution establishing application and permit fees for mobile food unit operation as outlined within Albany Municipal Code Chapter 5.06, mobile food units.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Councilor Olson, is that an aye?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All those opposed, same sign. There's none opposed. Motion passes. A resolution passes. Next item. Okay, so we're on the second page. Award of contract would be Director Yeager.
Good evening again. So we currently have a contract with Government Portfolio Advisors, and that contract will be ending June 30th of this year. So we went out for a formal competitive process and requesting proposals. We actually only received one from GPA. We had several people who contacted us and said they would be interested in providing discretionary advisory services, but our financial policy doesn't, our investment policy doesn't allow for that. They can only provide non-discretionary, where we have a say in any investment that is made. We have to approve it before it can be done. So GPA submitted a very strong proposal. We went through the scoring process. We've been very happy with their services in the past, and we would like council to please adopt the resolution that allows us to accept the proposal and award the contract to GPA.
Council, any questions for the director?
Yes, I apologize again. This is because it's my first time.
Councilor Kopczynski was first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Finance Director question. It says the cost for the advisory services is $35,000 a year, totaling $175,000, and is budgeted. How does that compare with the previous contract?
I believe it was right in the $30,000 to $33,000 range. So they base their fees on the amount of our investments. So for the first 5 years, they would charge us $35,000 a year. But they do have, if our portfolio increases, they would have the opportunity to negotiate an increase in their cost or in the price we would pay.
Thank you.
Councilor Novak. Thank you, Councilor Kopczynski. Councilor Novak.
Well, Councilor Kopczynski's question helped a little bit. Again, I'm very new to how these things work. This is some people that you'd like us to hire to help with investments that the city makes, portfolio investments to, I would assume, raise or make money that we then, forgive me, but how is it used? Is it used to fill the budget gaps? What is this portfolio? I just need a little help.
So currently the city has about $100 million in assets. Now, some of those are tied up and can't be spent in different departments, like for example, water, sewer, they have funds that have to be saved for future uses. So we currently invest about half of our money into the local government investment pool that is run by the state of Oregon. But they have a cap, and the cap is based on a formula, I think from 1994, and what the difference is. So anyway, there's a cap on how much we can invest in the LGIP. Any other investments that we want to do would have to be outside of that. We don't want to hold that amount of money totaling about $49 million in our checking account. So currently we work with GPA, and they go out and they find us investments. They help us with our investment policy, and they will find different investments. They'll send them to us, and we'll take a look at them and decide if that's what we want to invest in. Maybe we decide that it's just not good enough and we want to just hang on to the money. We can do that too. So, and they're very good about answering questions. They usually come to council each year and are willing to answer any questions that council poses to them also.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I guess I will, I've already asked so many questions. I will direct my next question to our city manager privately and not take up anyone's time.
So Councilor Novak, I will also say that
Yes.
The returns that we get on those investments do get allocated out to the different programs in the city, the operating programs. So each of the departments will see some of those interest revenues coming in.
I'm glad to hear that. And you did use the number 100 million, correct?
It is about 100 million in total investments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? There's a resolution on page 82, councilors.
I'd move for approval.
Second.
You got a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The resolution is passed. Thank you very much, Director Yeager.
Thank you.
Okay, down back to the agenda. Order contract. So approval of agreements, intergovernmental agency agreement with for use of prevention trailer, the Fire Chief Shane Wooten. It's on page 83 to 87.
Hello again, Mayor and Council. I will be brief with these two intergovernmental agreements. These are both just agreements that we want to enter into with the City of Corvallis, the Corvallis Fire Department. The first one before you is to be able to use Corvallis's fire prevention trailer. And for visualization, think a 30-foot long camper trailer that's been converted to be set up like somebody's home, smoke detectors, bedroom, kitchen, well, a camper trailer. And then we're able to put smoke into that camper trailer and have little kids come in and they can practice escaping out of that area. So they learn how to crawl low and smoke. They're able to use a fire escape ladder to get out the bedroom window. And the Corvallis Fire Department has one. We want to borrow it, but in order to do that, we have to have an IGA with them. And that's what's in front of you right now. Mr. Mayor, if you'd like, I could go into the second IGA if you'd like, or if you, however you would like me to handle it.
Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, so the next one is also an IGA with the City of Corvallis. This specifically is because the construction that's going to be done on the Van Buren Bridge leaving Corvallis, ODOT has put a weight limit on that bridge, which has inhibited Corvallis's fire trucks from traveling over that bridge. So for them to respond to calls east of the river, they have to go down into Southtown and then come back on the bypass to get on Highway 34. The IGA we have is for automatic aid. So what will happen is while the construction is going on, if there is a structure fire, somebody's house on fire, east of the river, the dispatch centers will already know to automatically send one fire truck from Albany to respond with Corvallis. Their concern is that the delay from some of the other stations will be significant enough that we can get one of our fire trucks there sooner than they can get theirs. And for educational purposes, council, many of you know this, some may not, but we have many mutual aid and auto aid agreements with fire departments all around us. We all rely on each other and depend on each other. And this is just an extension of that. So I'm more than willing to answer any questions that you may have on either one.
Council, any questions for the chief, fire chief? I don't see any hands raised. Councilor Bartholomew, looking like you got something to say? Nope, you're good. So, city attorney, would you read this, or should we just have a motion from the council?
I'll approve both motions. Move to approve both motions.
I'll second.
There you go.
Okay, so we have a second for both of them,
Yes.
so we can do them both, Mary. Okay, city clerk.
Generally, when it's to agencies, we don't want that, but since this is both documents apply to the same agency, that's acceptable. And Sean said yes, so.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Both agreements have passed. So chief, please have us get those done. Thank you. Okay, next one. Next agenda item is approval of the consent agenda, adoption of the consent agenda. Council?
Move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next is a staff report, cost recovery process, Parks and Rec, Director Ledane, on page 106, 108.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I will keep it brief tonight. There's no action required on this one. I just wanted to bring it to you as a kind of an FYI to let you know that our department is currently going through a cost recovery process. And you might say, what in the world is that? Well, how we determine our fees, and that's from everything from camps to swim lessons to rentals of shelters. Those fees typically at this point aren't being set in a consistent manner. They could be based on market analysis. They could be based on certain direct costs and indirect costs. They could be done on other historical methods. And so as a result, it kind of creates inequities between our departments. And it also means that we have to come to you every year to ask for adjustments in some of our fees. And it doesn't necessarily give us the ability to be more nimble and adapt as, you know, as our prices change. And as community needs change. And so we are working with a contractor who does this. It's one of the good things that has come out of this virtual age, as contracting with a cost recovery consultant in the past has been expensive, and that was a barrier. That was going to be a barrier for us. But because we're able to do this cohort model, we're able to, you know, work on Zoom, and it makes it far, far, far more affordable for us. And so we've jumped on board. It's a 12-week program. We're already a little over a month in. In fact, our staff was on a call for about an hour today working through stuff. So the goal is that we will be able to compile all of our data. We're dumping all of our expenses, all of our revenues, and drilling down in all of them so that we're able to take a look and see what the true costs of all of our programs are, direct and indirect costs. And so that we're able to use feedback from the community and from our commission and potentially even from you all to determine how we want to subsidize programs. But it'll be great, as we'll be doing it fairly, we'll be doing it consistently, and we'll be doing it with eyes wide open, as we're, you know, we now really have the data loaded into everything so we can see how we're doing. Staff are taking to it really well. I'm really proud of the work that they're doing. We've got a long couple of months ahead of us, but that's okay. We're going to come out of it on the better side. And it's just preparing us for the next few years in our budget. And we're trying to be as sensible, as sustainable, and as nimble as we possibly can. So I'll be coming back to council at the end of this process with a methodology in the hopes that you all will be able to review it, hopefully approve it or make modifications as needed. But it would put the ball back in our court so that we are, as a department, able to set prices to cover our costs more frequently instead of having to come back and do it annually. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions, council?
No, congratulations. Good
Yeah.
job.
Exactly. I'll say thank you for doing the work. This is really wonderful to hear that.
Yeah.
We look forward to presenting the findings. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, council. Thank you, Director Ladana. Greatly appreciate it. Councilor Bartholomew, you had something? Okay, next is up on the agenda is business from the council. Councilor Kopczynski, you're first on my screen.
Nothing tonight.
Councilor Smith,
Nothing, thank you.
Councilor Novak,
Nothing, thank you.
Councilor Johnson,
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Stacy Bartholomew,
No, thank you.
Councilor Olson.
Well, nothing more tonight, thanks.
So I only had a couple, thank you very much, councilors. All I had a couple things. The banks that was approved on the 1st of February was, they broke ground. Went out there and visited with them. They started work on the site out there. So if you want to take a look at the site, it's at 595 Northeast Geary Street, South Northeast. Take a look out there if you want to see what that looks like. And then I was just saddened to hear that Caitlin May left the Democrat Herald. She resigned from her position.
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, that was a loss in my eyes for the city of Albany Democrat Herald. She covered the school system. She also covered what we do and holds us accountable. That's all I had. I think the city manager's report is next.
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to address communication that I think all councilors have received from one of your constituents, and that communication was about a rat problem. So some of you have received her emails and her suggestions. I did talk to Chris Schendel, our code compliance officer, about the rat problem, and to try to get some context. And what I heard from Chris was pretty interesting, and I've asked him to do double duty tonight and talk to you again, and this time about rats. So over to Chris, please.
Hello again, Council. So I did receive all the communications about the rat as well to review them. So for the 5 years I've been doing this, it's been pretty consistent around this year that we'll get some complaints, usually around 4, 5. And they're usually throughout the whole city. I actually had kind of a recap of the ones we had. Somebody say something? I had a recap of the ones that we had received with Miss Roten, and they were throughout the whole city. There was none that were coming from the exact area. There's some in North Albany, in the south, east, and west. So there's really no kind of hotbed of where they are coming from. A lot of times we have, in the past, we'll have people point to, because they're looking for a reason of this infestation, as they like to call it, to a business. You know, we have right next to YMCA, we have the recycle center. I've visited that location multiple times. They have monthly exterminators out there. They have traps all over the place. The same with Oregon Frozen Foods. They have the exact same program going on there. And in talking with them, their thing was like, can you please ask people to stop putting food in their recycling? But we continue. So as far as it being an increase or this like ever increasing issue, I haven't seen that, at least not in call volume or in areas. The code does have 2 sections that deal with infestation. We have one for rodent harborage, which says you cannot on your property have something that allows rodents to feed, breed, or shelter. And we also have an infestation code, which states if there's an infestation at a location, we could deal with that. Sometimes those are hard to reach because you have to make sure that the location somebody's pointing at is actually having an infestation, and it's not just like hearsay, which is oftentimes what you find. And if you look across the state in general, every city, you can find news article after news article about these rat issues. The increase does come from, urban farming. That's a huge uptick, especially with COVID. We had a lot of people that started canning their own food raising chickens, that does bring in a rat population as well. So these are all things that I know in the past that have been brought up to the city that we obviously do not want to hinder people from doing. I myself at my house have a garden. So that's kind of the context where we get these rat issues from. A lot of what we do is try to educate citizens on what they could do to keep them out of their house. Because if there is no food or shelter or anything of how to get into the house, they do not even stick around. You know, they are a survival instinct kind of animal. And when they do latch on to where food source is, they will continue to go there until that is removed. So I do it at my house and my grandma's house, my grandfather's house throughout the city. Every year I go around, I look for little holes that they could get into, seal them up, look for food sources, anything like that, because it's important to reduce the, temptation of them. But as far as like this increasing issue within the city, from my experience in call load, it's not really increasing.
Thank you, Officer Shindell. Is that it, Peter, for you?
Well, Mr. Mayor, if you had one more minute, please. I just wanted to make note that effective next Tuesday, June 1st, employees in city facilities will no longer be required to wear masks if they've been vaccinated and they're able to show the proof of that vaccination. And then I'll put more of it into the Friday report to you all, but on July 1st, we're planning to go back to in-person council meetings. And again, you will not need to wear a mask if you've been vaccinated and can show proof of that vaccination. So we've got a lot of details to work out between now and then. And of course, we're aiming always to stay in compliance with OHA and OSHA guidelines. But that will be, I think, a welcome change for everybody. And I see Councilor Novak has a hand up. I don't know if Mayor, if you wanted to recognize a question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Councilor Novak.
This was in regard to the rat issue. I respect that what Officer Shindell says, that he hasn't seen an uptick in the last 5 years. But as I noted to our city manager, having lived here for the most part since 1970, and when I was away, I would still visit my family multiple times a year. It's only since I moved back here permanently in 2015, and it wasn't immediately in 2015 that I ever heard about rats. But I would submit to you all that in the last 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years, because now I've been here almost 6 years, that from what I'm hearing and from what I'm reading from individuals who live in our town online, that it has become an issue, just to my mind, in the last 4 or 5 years. That's fairly recent. So in terms of livability and public safety, because of course rats can spread diseases and things, I do think this is something, and I appreciate everything Officer Shindell said. I mean, there are obvious things that people ought not do. Don't have food out there. Don't, and raising chickens can be a thing, but I also don't want to tell someone that they can't raise a chicken. My only point is that from what I have witnessed, having been in this town since 1970, we didn't seasonally at this time of year have a problem with rats, ever. From 1970 up until, I would say 2016, maybe 2017. Nobody ever talked about rats. Now, a lot of people are talking about rats. And so to my mind, it does merit some serious attention. And I don't know what we can do beyond what Officer Shindell has said, but I would like this to me, it's a genuine matter of concern. Again, it's not just coming from one individual, it's coming from various individuals all across the city. Thank you, that's all.
I can, so I'll talk a little bit, and I agree, rats and disease and plague and all that stuff, we all have taken many history classes that explain about that. The fact of the matter is without those heavy restrictions of things we don't want to restrict, we don't have the manpower to send out hit squads for rats or the money to hire somebody to exterminate a rat problem across the city. Back when I first started this and I started getting all these rat calls that I wasn't familiar with, I looked up multiple cities that had done astronomical amount of things to get rid of them, and none of it ever worked. And there's articles across that easily searched across cities that try to address these, and I've just never found one that works. All of them end up going back to the how do you keep them out of your own home. So that's kind of why I keep hitting on that point.
Thank you very much, Officer Schindel. Councilor, City Manager, your time.
No, that was it, Mayor. I just note that Monday is Memorial Day, and it's not appropriate to wish a happy Memorial Day, but I think it's an opportunity to reflect on the sacrifices that many have made for our country over the last 228 years. So thanks for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. So our next meeting dates are June the 7th, Monday, June 7th at 4 p.m. for a work session, and Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, 6 p.m. for a regular meeting. Now, is that going to be our first meeting inside, or is that going to be in July?
July.
Okay, fantastic. Looking forward to seeing all your faces without a mask on. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, really.
So now we're at the stage in the game. We're gonna call for an adjournment of the meeting. Thank you all for tuning in this evening, and see you on the other side.
Yes, sir.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Good night.